Good morning, everybody. We'll just give a couple more minutes for some more people to jump on the call. I think we're expecting quite a few more. So good morning to you if you're already here. I'll just give it a few more seconds to allow our other attendees to join. So good morning to you, Bobby, Faye. I've got Mariana, Sue, Zakaria. I hope I said that right. Good morning to you all. Good morning. Good morning, Mariana. Okay, well, I won't make you wait any longer. Let's start now, shall we? Good morning to you all. It's great to have you here. My name is Talia, and I am going to be talking to you over the next 45 minutes or so about marketing automation for fundraising. So we're going to look at the challenges and opportunities that marketing automation brings, and also how to embrace automation for your organisation and to help bolster your fundraising income. So towards the end of the sessions, I'll also just tell you a little bit about economic change and what we're doing to help charities embrace automation. Is that ever okay with everybody? Please feel free to use the chat box to interact. I want this to be as useful as it can, and I would like it to be an interactive session too, so I don't just want to sit here and talk to a kind of blank space. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat box, raise your hand, and we'll do our best to address those towards the end of the session. So we're just going to have a little look now at I'm sorry, my screen appears to be a bit stuck. Let me just move this out of the way. Right. So let's start with the issues. Traditional marketing and traditional fundraising model is a bit broken, but actually that's not a bad thing if you can embrace that change. So the challenges are really for kind of modern fundraisers and marketeers alike is adopting a new model which is relevant today, telling stories and creating content which resonates with your audience, embracing everybody as a channel. Your supporters can engage other donors, they can open doors for corporates, they can engage in the community. So it's really important to create individual journeys and experiences and understand how those interactions add up to a whole kind of interaction with a donor or a supporter. So, you know, the traditional marketing and fundraising funnel is no longer applicable, really. We can't just go along scooping people up and chucking them into a funnel and kind of push them through. We have to allow people to drive their own experiences, and they have to choose when they interact with you and how. So people want to drive their experiences. They want to interact with you in the way that they want to. They want to be in control. So, and they also want to choose whether to interact or not. So let's embrace those opportunities that digital brings. It really does give you an opportunity. So, and I mean, this is one of the issues and also one of the opportunities, but so many touch points. You know, if you think about your channels, you've got social, you've got email, out of home, earned media like your PR, influencers, affiliates, and also you've got things like blogs and webs. The digital model is really, really busy. It's scrolling is normal, noise is normal, attention spans are limited, and your donors need to drive their own agenda and experience, and really the traditional models aren't relevant here. Also, your digital audience have got really high expectations of you. They need you to understand all of the interaction points along the way and where they engage and how. 50% of all customer journeys start on social, which is a source I pulled from salesforce.com. All of this information everywhere and all of the relationships are available anywhere all the time. So how can you understand those interaction points along the way? Where do your donors and constituents engage, and how and when? Also, how can you listen socially and understand what people are saying about your brand? How do you manage that? How can you respond? You know, we understand the challenges of having a small and limited marketing and fundraising resource and budget. So really the challenges that automation helps you embrace is to having meaningful social interactions, making it work for you as a team, and making you be able to kind of extend your reach and impact without a massive budget and without an extra team. One of the things that's really important in this slide is the point about consumer activism as well, about your brand behaviour. So we know that there's been a lot of charity bashing in the media recently and over the last few years. So it's really important that for your constituents and for your donors that your brand is authentic, it's transparent, and it's accountable. So let's look into that in a bit more detail. So how do you create a personalised experience? Well, here comes, this is where automation enters the picture. So this is a screenshot which I've taken from Salesforce.org, just to give you a bit of an idea about some of the journeys that we might be wanting to join the dots on. So each of your constituents is on their own journey, and they need to be on their own journey. And so mass messages and generic communications aren't enough to engage them on that journey. So, for example, they might click on a Facebook ad, they might sign up to partake in a particular fundraiser for you, they might expect to receive personalised content within an email, they might then volunteer, they might opt in or out via mobile, they might get in contact with you, they might pick up the telephone, they might have an issue which they might raise on social media, or they might raise with you directly. But it's being able to look at all of those touch points and understand the interactions with that person at every point along the way. So let's have a look at some of those challenges in a bit more detail. So there are a lot of challenges, multi-channel touch points, much more demand for personalisation. I know that there's an increased pressure on budget and also being able to demonstrate your return on investment, and also on a practical sense, being able to manipulate the data that you do have to create this personalised offering and messaging for your constituents. So these are a few ways that automation can help you to raise more money and reach more donors more effectively. So you can gain a deep understanding of each donor by enriching data with information about their activity, email clicks, opens, content interactions, real time. How do they interact with you, when and how? You can think about trying to create better, more personalised emails. So sending the right email to the right person at the right time is possible with automation. Also, you can look at segmenting your supporters based on areas like when they first came into contact with you, what they're interested in, what they've donated to previously, and make sure that every piece of content that you give to them is personalised to them and not generic. So it will enable you to interact on an individual and personal level with each of your donors and supporters. Also, to personalise your charity's message. So all of your different constituents, if you think about them in terms of your stakeholders, your fundraisers, your volunteers, your advocates, your donors, they've all got different needs, and they all interact and work with you for different and interconnecting reasons and different motivations. So looking at identifying common themes within that community and understanding what really drives that segment to interact with you. will help you to personalise that different type of information you send to those people. Also, in terms of the personalisation, is that you can engage people in the ways they want to be involved with you. You can guide each contact donor through a personalised journey that dynamically responds to the way they behave with you. That means that each person that interacts with you is able to go on a specific tailored opportunity, journey with different specific tailored opportunities to get involved with you based upon their, what they're interested in, how they've interacted with you before. And it ensures alignment across your network to make sure that all of those communications are consistent across all your channels as well, which I think is really key in a world where your donors and potential donors are going to be interacting with you in so many different ways. Consistency and brand message, and also going back to that kind of brand authenticity is really, really crucial there. So looking at each one of those in a bit more detail. So engaging on a personal level. So how do you create lasting relationships? Well, a lot of charities have been left behind in the digital world, and their donors have moved on. I think one of the key challenges is building and engaging a personal relationship with each of your donors, is to really understand them and to show that you understand them. So make sure that you've got a comprehensive plan in place for when a new supporter comes on board. From the minute you gather that person's email address, how do you interact with them on a personal level? Do you have a comprehensive plan to welcome them to the community? Do you put them on a journey once you've welcomed them to help kind of move them around your organisation, to understand and connect with your cause, to understand the impact of their donations to you and what it means to your organisation on a personal level, and the recipients of that donation. Being able to engage your donors in that way and show them that you really understand how they interact with you and why, and also giving them that kind of the feel good and the thank you in return. The other thing is that the automation kind of empowers is it helps you to automate slow manual processes. So, for example, you wouldn't want to be sending out a manual email every time somebody has donated to you, or to manually manipulate your data to find out what those people have been interacting with and how. And engagement on that level without automation is a very time-consuming process, and I'm sure you've all felt the pain of having to trawl through a spreadsheet or find a particular kind of donor detail on an individual level, and the thought of having to do that at a kind of a cross-organisational level is pretty daunting on a manual basis. In fact, it's impossible. Automation also empowers multi-channel marketing. So we talked earlier about the importance of connecting across multiple channels with a lot of people. That's pretty tricky without automation, and automation will empower that, particularly when you're a small team. So, it can be from a very basic level. So looking at your monthly email newsletter, for example, do you just push out a generic email newsletter to everybody, to your donor base, or could you look at using automation to segment that in a more meaningful way? So could you communicate with people specifically about areas where they're interested in, whether that's about your cause or the things that you're doing, whether that's about fundraising or events or sponsorship or whatever that might be. Just being able to segment at that level and sending out a tailored communication to each one of your email list will help you to connect with them. Also, every fundraiser has got a kind of a segment of hard to reach and hard to engage donors. You might call them cold donors. You might want to kind of nurture that pot of people back into an active donor. So, you know, you can have really rich data on these people, and make sure that you're creating content which is tailored every interaction with them, whether that's on their location, what they're interested in, how they've engaged with you. You know, engagement on a personal level really is key. And that's where automation really comes into its own, because automating a personal relationship may actually seem a bit of an odd concept, but in reality, technology is an enabler to relationship building with these donors and supporters. You know, you can think of it as an additional administrator, fundraiser, and data manager, kind of all rolled into one. And it can help you do so many things, whether that is sending out a tailored email newsletter that we've just spoken about, sending out a birthday email to your donors just to make them feel valued, sending out a thank you, which is personalised based upon what they've donated and what that outcome has meant to you. And similarly, building different journeys for different groups of donors who you perceive to be kind of interacting in the same way. It really is, you know, an endless opportunity. So this is just a bit more about the multi-channel experience that we've spoken about. So, and the fact that donors and supporters want interaction across all your channels. They want to interact with you when they want to interact with you, and you need to then be able to build a complete donor experience for them. I think the core thing is with automation here is think about the time and resource it would take to have a team member or for yourself to monitor and respond across all of those channels. You know, we all know that social opens up a whole world of opportunity, but at the same time, it's very time consuming to make sure that you're clear on the interactions with people on social, understand what people are saying about you, and also ensuring that no supporter goes unnoticed, because you don't want to have a supporter who is engaging with you and not getting anything back. So, and you can integrate your systems to manage these tasks in one place with automation as well. So just a bit more about managing preferences, really. We spoke about being able to tailor communications in your email, for example. You know, generic is not enough anymore. People want that personalised experience, and it's really vital to put them in control of when and where you interact with them and how. So imagine if you can create an email newsletter for each one of your recipients with dynamic content, which you can do with automation. So you can only hold their attention for such a small time in this digital world that the right message is absolutely crucial. The other thing which you can do, which is really powerful with automation, is to kind of automate A/B testing. Does everybody know what A/B testing is? Are you all awake? Would it be useful for me to talk a bit more about A/B testing? Pop it in the chat box if you'd like me to go into a bit more detail. No? Everyone okay with A/B testing? Aha. Yes, please. Hello, I can see you all now. Thank you. Okay. So in terms of sorry, all of your questions have just popped up in the same box. So let's talk about that in a bit more detail in a sec. A/B testing is a way of putting two messages in front of a donor or anybody and understanding which of those messages is resonating, and being absolutely clear on what part of that is the kind of killer message or image. With A/B testing, you would usually only test two variables. So you might test your headline, you might test the image, or you might test a call to action. Only probably one or two, you know, you'd only test two variables against each other. One of the things that you can do with automation, though, is that you can set 2 automations to run. So say this, we're talking about an email here, or a landing page. You can do it across the 2. You would put one piece of content on your landing page. So you might test a call to action which says, I don't know, time is running out, donate now, against message B, which might be, here's what your money can do, donate now. Smart automation systems will allow you to then measure the interaction with each of those messages, and some automation will actually then select the most popular and then automatically serve that. So it means that all of your communications are tested and that they are kind of performing as well as they can be. And also then you can test different elements at different times. So you could test a headline against an image, or you could test a call to action against an image. That way you really make sure that your marketing and your fundraising activity is completely on point, that it's resonating with your audience, and that the stuff that you're serving them is the stuff that's actually going to generate the best action and the best outcome, and also is most likely to deliver the most return on investment for you. So that's A/B testing, which is massively useful. Let's just skip across to the next slide. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is data manipulation and segmentation. Why are we not clicking here? So, I mean, how many of us have... Sorry, Bobby, I've got your hand raised. Are you okay? Can you hear me all right? No? Okay, I'll keep going. Give me a shout if there's a problem in the comments, Bobby. Oh, okay, I've got you. Brilliant, great. So in terms of data manipulation, I mean, how many of you have spent endless hours digging around in spreadsheets trying to identify a particular customer segment or a particular donor profile? I mean, we've all been there and we've all done that. With marketing automation, segmentation can be done in kind of minutes, almost seconds, allowing you to focus on the more important tasks to drive your fundraising income. So, for example, you can build a live personal profile of your donors and supporters and their interactions with your cause. So, to give you an example, you could say to your automation system, find me everybody who's made a donation of over £500 in the last 3 months and who is interested in coming to an event. And then you would run the segmentation. That means that you can spend your time focusing on the detail of the event itself and actually the kind of the tasks that go into that, not the day-to-day manipulating data. What you can also do for that this fictitious event is you can use your automation then to send registration emails. You can integrate with some event management systems, so you can also manage your attendees. You can you can send people on a personalized journey for that particular event. All of that as an individual fundraiser and done on a manual basis would obviously take you a significant amount of time and effort. And I think it probably, if you're anything like I am, and a lot of us are, you've got a small team of people who are already stretched. So having automation take some of those more manual tasks away from the team allows you to focus on the things that really matter. So planning that strategy and working on getting the kind of best return on investment for your activity. And you can also understand how people are interacting with that particular piece of content, for example. So if you send out an email, who's read that email? What did they click? What did they do once they read that? Where did they go? What's making them react? What works? What doesn't? And all of that information can be real time as well. So it's not a static piece of information. It is a real time kind of live piece of marketing information. Okay, let's just, move on to the next slide. It seems that when my questions box is open that my slides don't want to change. I'm just going to minimise that. Okay. So, and this leads me on really to proving your fundraising return on investment. I mean, we're all in a situation where budgets are shrinking. We're having to work much harder for those donations and for that income. And people, senior management teams, want to understand the impact of the fundraising spend and what that return on investment looks like. And also, from a donor point of view, for you to be able to demonstrate the impact that you're making because of the donations that are coming into you, I think that's really cool. Having the right kind of automations in place can really help you to number one, measure and really understand your metrics. So understand what's driving income and to do more of that, and to kind of continually develop an iterative approach to your fundraising activity so that everything that you're doing is providing the maximum return on your investment, and also that you can demonstrate that at any point to any stakeholder. Also understanding what is the most cost-effective way of delivering that income. So if you've got a particular target that you're trying to achieve, knowing what those drivers are, what drives the regular donations, who are your most valuable donor groups, and that changes all the time. So having a real-time picture of these core fundraising metrics is really, really important. So I just wanted to share with you a story which I first heard of last year from SolarAid about the power of thank you. Now it lends itself in a lot of ways to automation, but also then I'd like to show you how they could perhaps have improved it with automation. But imagine being able to send a personalised thank you to each donor, which demonstrates the impact of that donation, whether it's that individual one or over a long period of time, or a year or 10 years. The power of thank you for your donors is absolutely crucial. Now, the SolarAid example, which I'm going to tell you now, it wasn't automated. It was back in 2014, but the SolarAid staff decided, and this, when I say staff, I mean everybody. I mean staff, trustees, chief exec, everybody got on the phone to say thank you to all of their supporters. They'd reached a kind of milestone of 1 million likes, and they felt it was really important to engage with all of those people who had taken them to that level, who had helped them to achieve that goal. So because they reached that milestone, they just wanted to say thank you. There was no ask at all in the campaign. And they saw the calls as just an opportunity for a heartfelt conversation. Now, it took the entire team, over a week, full time of calling and thanking those donors personally. And those people that they didn't speak to, they sent a thank you postcard in the post. Now, they talk about a call they had with a particular family. One lady that they phoned was absolutely shocked that they weren't asking for any money for a start, and seemed a bit kind of taken aback by that. And she was quite bemused. So she actually put them on speakerphone for the whole family to hear the message of thank you. So don't underestimate the power of a thank you without an ask, and automation can help you to do that. The other thing is the campaign, the Thanks a Million campaign, although they weren't looking for return on investment, they were looking to thank and to show donors how important they were to them. one of the people on the call ended up phoning somebody's house, and the donor wasn't there. So they spoke to his wife and engaged with her about why they were calling. And then she explained that the husband was in hospital and actually gave them the direct number for this hospital bed where they spoke to this man and thanked him for his support and talked about any questions on Solar Aid, which was a bit of an odd thing to do, but they, thought it was lovely. Made a note in the CRM system. Now, one of the things that they then say is that they had no idea of the return on investment of that Thanks a Million campaign. And one of the things that automation can empower is really understanding the value of those communications, because they've already said in the case study that they've spent a week of their time, the whole team spent a whole week calling, which was absolutely a lovely thing to do. However, what did that return? They don't really know. Although what they did find at a later date was that they had two donations in memory, both for that gentleman and that lady who had sadly kind of passed on after having the conversation. But they did have income generated from these people because they'd engaged in that way. Now, I'm not saying that marketing automation can replace a phone call. I think marketing automation can run in conjunction with picking up the phone and talking to your donors. But what it can do is it can take a lot of that manual task away from it. And an important kind of lesson in the Solar Aid message is that it can also deliver those figures on return on investment and really help you to understand what impact your fundraising is having. So just with that in mind, I mean, I don't know, where are you all in your automation journeys? Can you just pop in the chat box for me? Are you all, do you use automation? Are you thinking about using automation? Do you not use automation? Useful for me to understand. You don't use automation, okay. Just about to start, okay. We don't have individual donors, so we don't use it. Okay, that's interesting, Mariana. Okay, so nobody's. It looks like the majority of people on the call aren't using automation at the moment, and that's fine. You're not alone. You're not alone, and that's exactly why I'm here today. So there are some really practical ways to look at marketing automation, and I understand that it can be massively overwhelming. So I think the easiest way to look at automation is to just take it step by step. So don't be overwhelmed by the possibilities. Create an automation strategy and work through each step in a way that works for you and your team. One of the useful ways to do that is to start by mapping out your fundraising processes. So, and identify quick wins for automation and where personal interaction is needed. So you might want to just automate a thank you email. You might want to look at automating a small journey. So if somebody donates, send them a thank you. Think about the next step. Think about how you can use that automation to move people around the journey that you want them to achieve over time. And I think one of the reasons why sometimes automation can feel overwhelming at that point is because there's so many different interactions. So one of the most practical ways to get started is to just start mapping out those interactions one by one, because what we're not looking at here is one massive customer journey. We're looking at a number of different journeys, all running at the same time, that would help you to achieve your end goal more effectively. Also, look at your CRM and your automation technology. So make sure that it interacts and integrates. Don't necessarily be put off by an investment in the technology, because it will likely prove return on investment for you in the mid to long term. And And I think also, no matter what your organisation size, look at the opportunities that are kind of given to you with automation. There are lots of opportunities out there, whether you use MailChimp, for example, whether you use something like Campaign Monitor, or whether you use a more complex system that we would use, which is Pardot. You know, there are a lot of opportunities, and they don't all have to cost you a lot of money. So look at the opportunity out there, and you know, by having a really clear strategy and a really clear understanding of your fundraising processes and your customer journeys, it just makes everything a little bit clearer to start. I think that's it for me. Sorry, I'm having another problem with my slides moving. Let's try again. Yes, it is. So I just noticed there was a couple of questions in the questions box. So let's have a quick look. I know. Let's start from the top. So Mariana, I noticed that you asked earlier, was it in the comments about not having individual donors and whether or not automation was relevant to different audience groups? So what would your audience group how do you work? Do you work with foundations or corporations, or let me see if I can find the question. Fundraise to specific projects with foundations and corporations. Okay, well, that's interesting. I think what I would say to you is you can still build customer journeys with automation, even though you're not looking at kind of an individual donor level. And I think it goes back to the slide that I was looking at previously, when we look at all of the different interactions. So people engage across all channels. And I think what's really important to understand with automation is people also engage with people. So whether you're looking to work with a foundation or whether you're looking at an individual donor level, people within those foundations still interact on social, they still interact via tailored email, and they still want a very tailored experience from you. So I think it gives you a real opportunity then to look at how they interact with you and how they interact with your content, for you to be able to automate a journey for the foundations and corporations as well as from a donor level. So I think it works whatever your audience group. Faye's asked a question about making sure that you're GDPR compliant. So one of the things that automation can do, and this is something which I talked to slightly when I was talking about kind of tailoring content, making sure that your systems are all integrated. So for example, your email marketing system is integrated with your CRM, and making sure that your recipients are at the heart of that journey and that they're completely in control of how they interact with you. So one of the things that you can do is build out something which is called an email preference center. So instead of building, instead of just having a generic unsubscribe, you can give your recipients a very tailored list of how they might want to interact. So you might give them an idea about, do you want to receive details about events? Do you want to talk about sponsorship opportunities? Are you interested in running a sporting event for us? And give them the opportunity to tailor that communication at that individual level and exactly how they want to respond to you. The other thing is making sure that you've got that level of integration between your CRM and your email marketing tool, so that you can make sure that from a GDPR point of view, you can tick all the rules and follow all of the guidelines to make sure that when people unsubscribe, they are unsubscribing, and also that you can demonstrate when and where someone has unsubscribed and the actions you've taken to then remove them from the database. So it's a lot about integration with systems and making sure those processes are in place. Hi Bobby. Recently I did a little bit of research on my trust owners and found out more about their motivations, which I didn't have from any other sources, and now have the opportunity to tailor communications. But other than sending out standard letters, I'm still unsure as to how to automate communications. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So you've done some research on your trust owners and you found out a bit more about what motivates them. So I don't know what email marketing system you're using, but let's put it onto a kind of a generic email marketing system. If you know that you can then segment those trust owners and they've got different motivations, for example, you could tailor the content that goes out to each of those people, specifically leading on the areas of interest that they resonate with. So you might do 3 different versions of the same newsletter, for example, but for group A, who are more motivated by, I don't know, what might trust owners be motivated by, you could lead on that. You could talk to them about the areas that they are interested in specifically. Housing, okay, brilliant. So you could send out one to people who are particularly interested in housing, leading on housing news. For the other group who might be interested in a different area, you can lead on that. And what it means is, instead of just sending out generic communications about all of the news that you've got, you can be really specific. So if you're sending a targeted mailing to people who are interested in housing, they're much more likely to engage. And with automation, you can understand how they engage. So if that's from a newsletter, you can understand what they clicked on, what they did after they clicked, what that journey looked like, and then you can really start to build up a picture from that individual level about how they engage with you and what's interesting to them and what motivates them to then act. And you can also start to build a return on investment picture for that particular audience and also that particular person. So it really helps you to be specific, to measure your communications and to tailor it from an automated point of view. So you could run a segmentation, for example, that everyone was interested in housing, as opposed to perhaps having to trawl through a spreadsheet and then manually upload a data list to something like MailChimp, for example. There are also opportunities with automation, depending on the complexity, to serve dynamic content to that person. So for example, say that person received an email on housing, they clicked on the housing link, you know that they're interested in that. Next time they go onto your website, you could then serve them dynamic content on housing specifically. I think a good place to start is to look at mapping out those interactions and how you do them currently, and start to draw them out. I mean, all it needs to be is some post-it notes or a big kind of A4 flip chart where you start to draw out those different journeys that you would perhaps do manually and look at how you can automate them. Is that helpful? But that then requires more with other areas of the organisation. Yeah, I think that's the thing. It does often, automation will span across departments. It can also work on a departmental level, but obviously you've got requirements coming in from other areas like marketing, I'm assuming. Is that what you mean? Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions that they'd like to ask? No? Okay. So just to wrap up then, just going to tell you a little about me and my team. So I work for Economic Change. We are a non-profit specialist who specialise in Salesforce for charities. and I head up the marketing solutions team. So I help implement marketing automation for charities and non-profits, social enterprises. I have got a marketing background. I've worked in the sector probably for about 15 years, and I'm really interested in marketing automation, as you can probably tell, and the opportunities that it brings to the sector. So we work with charities to help them integrate their marketing solutions with their CRM system, and also to understand how to harness the kind of power of digital in order to maximise their impact and return on investment. Lovely, Mariana. So if you would like to talk to me, I'd be really, really pleased to talk to you about your individual motivations for considering marketing automation. The contact details are all on the screen, so you can pop me an email at talia@economicchange.co.uk, or if you want to pop in the chat or the questions box, if you'd like me to send you a copy of the slides, let me know and I will. And B, if you'd like to take some time for a half an hour one-to-one kind of chat with you, just looking at your marketing automation needs, and I'd be very pleased to do that. So if you can just pop in the comments box if you'd like me to send you a copy of the slides, and Mariana, I'll be sure to pick up with you after the call, and we'll have a chat about what your requirements are. So at this point, I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining me. It's been a pleasure to have you all here. Do get in touch if there's anything that I can do. But other than that, good luck with your automation journeys, and I'll look forward to hopefully seeing you all again soon on another webinar. Thanks ever so much. Bye, everyone.